Alright guys, today I'm going to be ranking my top 20 favourite shortcuts in Mario Kart World. This list will simply be based on how cool I think each shortcut is mixed with their actual practicality in races. Let's not waste any time and get straight into it. To start things off at number 20, I've put the ending shortcut in Mario Bros Circuit. Being able to get from the road to the platform using a mushroom combined with a charge jump is quite cool, especially since you get to smash through some boxes in the process. This shortcut gives the slower bottom path more merit since it is quite a lot faster than taking the glider path if you pull it off. Also, you can do the shortcut without a mushroom, which looks cool as well, however it is pretty random so it's not really worth going for in a race. On Choco Mountain, there are so many different patches of chocolate that you can drive through using mushrooms and stars, the biggest one being this section that lets you take the long turn as tight as possible. Therefore, being able to take the shortcut with a feather takes the number 19 spot on the list. Charge jumping onto this platform, then using a feather after tricking off the ramp gets you over all the chocolate on the left of the road, saving a big chunk of time, and it's a lot of fun to pull off. Now in number 18 I've put another feather shortcut, this one being a lot more difficult than on Choco Mountain, but it's even more fun to pull off. Crown City has two big shortcuts in a row in the final section that people can use to catch up to the front pretty easily, each of them requiring a mushroom to take. This of course is a problem when you're front running this track, so how about we pull a feather in first and just do this? Pretty cool, right? It actually isn't as hard as it looks, you just need to charge jump quite perpendicularly onto the wall, then trick into the pole. Then you wait until you're between the two trees mid-air and let the feather do the rest. However, make sure you stay on the left side of the roof after you land. Lakitu picks you up if you go too far to the right. I do want to just mention here that you can get past these two shortcuts without any item by just charge jumping into this tree, then driving through the second patch of off-road with the speed you get from an air trick, which I haven't seen anyone else do, so that's pretty cool as well. Bowser's Castle is a track with a plethora of shroomless shortcuts, all of which are really fun to do, so this isn't the last time you'll be seeing this track in the video. The shortcut in 17th in the list is the second big shortcut on this track, where you jump onto this wall, then trick at the very top of it to get all the way to the platform ahead. Now, this shortcut is fun to pull off, but I don't really like the entry into it, which is why it is this low on the list. The ramp that you have to jump off to land on the wall just feels random sometimes, and if you get a really high trick, it's quite annoying to deal with. That is only a small issue though, it's still a very fun shortcut on the whole, and it's used a lot in races. Wario Shipyard is quite a polarizing track in this game due to the water physics. While I don't love how water works in this game, I think it's still quite interesting to drive. However, I do prefer being able to take shortcuts that skip a lot of the water, which are pretty frequent on this track. My favourite one is in the middle of the track, where you trick onto the rail at the second item set, then do a left trick into the tree, and then you can use a mushroom or a feather to go through the off-road. This shortcut on its own is fun to do, and it has the extra benefit of skipping a lot of the water for anyone who doesn't like the physics. Mumu Meadows has had a big glow up in this game. There are a lot more interesting shortcuts and strategies on this track thanks to the rails, wall rides and charge jumps. The easiest one to pull off is the tree bounce, which also happens to be the biggest one and the most fun, which gets it into number 15 on my list. I find this shortcut incredibly satisfying to do, and that is pretty much the only reasoning I have. DK Pass is a track that I thought was incredibly boring to play when the game first came out, but the shortcuts that were discovered quickly changed that and made it one of my favourite tracks in the game. The wall ride at the start of the race is one of these shortcuts, and I really enjoy doing it in races. You have to time when you trick off the wall based on the angle of your wall ride and how much speed you have, which I really enjoy doing. Also, if you fail this cut and land on the rail at the top, it is very slow, which makes it feel more rewarding when you do make it. So far, the majority of the shortcuts in this video can be done by almost every player in every race, especially at a high level of play. Now in number 13, I'm abandoning that train of thought completely and putting one of the most difficult shortcuts in the game which isn't ever worth it to go for online. The wall ride on Great Question Block Ruins is a shortcut that is only ever done in time trials by the fastest players, making it incredibly rewarding to pull off. Of course, the fact that it's completely pointless to go for in an actual race does limit how high on the list it can be, but I really do like how ridiculous it is since the wall is so narrow, and it saves quite a lot of time if you manage to get the fastest version of it with the trick at the exit. Now a shortcut that I really dislike in this game is the final turn of Salty Speedway, since it's insanely chaotic with the items being spammed, especially on lap 3, and you can get random pockets of airtime which are really annoying. So what better shortcut to put on the list than the glider version of the same shortcut that lets you avoid most of the chaos and is just a lot more fun to pull off. I like that this gives the glider path itself a big purpose, since it's slightly slower than the normal route, but being able to take this shortcut combined with the potential benefit when a shock happens whilst you're in the glider makes it a genuine decision for players over which path to take. To round off the first half of the video, I have put the U-turn shortcut on Guy Bazar in 11th. This shortcut has a very nice difficulty. It is consistent with practice and can give you a nice time gain over your competition. The lead up to this shortcut is also really fun, making it enjoyable to go for 3 for 3 in time trials. It is quite simply a fun shortcut with a good reward. Nothing much else to say. To kick off my top 10, I've put the shroomless charge jump shortcut on Cheap Falls. Now I don't really like driving the majority of this track, but this shortcut stands out as the most fun part for me by quite a distance. The ridiculous height you get from the charge jump is just so strange but satisfying to pull off. It kind of feels like you broke the physics of the game. What this shortcut also does is strongly contributes to making this track more viable to front run. With bagging being such a powerful strategy in this game, a track like Cheap Falls seems like it would be an automatic bagging track for most players due to the 2 huge shortcuts towards the end. However, being able to do this shortcut without any mushrooms reduces the benefit that bagging has on this track, since you'll be losing less time despite not having strong items. Also, if you combine this with taking the final shortcut without mushrooms as well, it becomes a track that people can get huge breakaways on if they drive it well enough. Since it is the longest and most visually crazy track in the game, Rainbow Road is a track you'd expect to have pretty cool shortcuts to take during the race, and if you watch the world record you won't be disappointed. In the number 9 spot in this list, I've put the gap cut at the end of section 2, which requires either a mushroom or a feather to complete. The main appeal of this shortcut is just how cool it looks when you watch it. It is such a large gap to jump over and it clearly requires some precise driving to pull off effectively. There is a problem with this shortcut though. The fact that it's on section 2 makes it a lot less important in online races than the majority of the other shortcuts in this video, since there is so much of the race left for the payoff of making this shortcut to be significantly reduced. Despite that though, it still gets into the 9th spot in the list. I did say you'd see Bowser's Castle again in this video, and this time we have the multiple versions of the beginning shortcut. To me, this shortcut doesn't have the wow factor that some of the other shortcuts in this video do, but you can't deny the practicality and variety that this shortcut brings to the table. If you aren't going for this shortcut, then you're basically guaranteed to not win a race on this track. It saves so much time and it's easily done, with several different methods to pull it off. You can jump directly from the road over the gap, you can use the rail combined with a trick off the arrows, or you can charge jump into the wall and trick off the arrows again. Having such a variety of options for the same shortcut is very interesting, but it isn't quite enough to be my favourite shortcut on this track, so you can still expect to see Bowser's Castle again in the video. The coin is an item that I would have never have guessed to be essential for a shortcut to work, but then Wario Stadium happened. Charge jumping off this ramp at the correct angle onto the right wall can get you up to the rail at the top, taking a very tight turn. However, touching the coin on the right makes this shortcut a lot easier to pull off, making it a lot more possible online. This mechanic is very unique and it makes for interesting scenarios where you have to decide whether you're able to take the shortcut based on if the coin is going to be available or not, which is something you never have to consider in any other situation in the game, putting this shortcut pretty high up in the list. Furthermore, being able to trap this shortcut is a fun aspect as well. You can get a nice lead over players behind you if you prevent them from taking the shortcut as well, primarily by using bananas. Whistle Stop Summit is a track with quite a few shortcuts that save a lot of time, one of which being the big gap cut after the second item set. Whilst it's quite simple at first glance, it actually requires a lot of precision to complete, especially when it comes to time trials. The charge jump on its own takes practice to get consistently, but then getting the best angle for the fastest possible landing is a whole different ballgame. You can use a mushroom when you land to ensure you won't lose much time, which is a nice option to have, especially when you're doing it in an online race. It makes it a lot more viable to go for. I also really like taking this shortcut with the feather. It is such an easy thing to do, but it can give you a huge breakaway when you're in first on this track. It makes the feather the best item to pull on this track by a mile. Now to kick off the top 5, we have the third and final Bowser's Castle appearance on the list, with my favourite shortcut on this track being the shroomless wall ride. This is basically just a much cooler looking version of the Great Question Block Ruins wall ride. Tricking off the pole and wall riding underneath the lava fall is just class to watch. It is also slightly easier to pull off, which makes it more enjoyable to learn. Whilst it is the least practical of the 3 shortcuts on this track for online racers, I just think it's simply the coolest one, especially when you see how well it is performed in the world record. Like I said earlier, the shortcuts that have been found on DK Pass have made it one of my favourite tracks in the game, and my favourite of those shortcuts is the tree bounce cut. Tricking off 2 trees in a row to get over a large patch of off-road is so much fun to do. It is not too difficult, but there is still a skill ceiling to it, because it is much faster to be on the left side of the second tree for a better landing into the next turn, which is quite tricky to pull off. I am very glad you can drift through the off-road after you land. It would be a bit obnoxious if you couldn't. I also like that you can do a slightly slower version of the shortcut if you want to get an item box. Having 2 different options just makes it a bit more interesting. Great Question Block Ruins is my favourite track in this game because it is such a unique track to drive with many different tricks and shortcuts throughout the entire thing. So naturally, the most interesting shortcut on this track makes it into the top 3 in my list, which of course is the ending box cut. When the game came out, it felt pretty obvious to me that there would be some ridiculous way to get past the off-road on the final turn, but I did not expect it to look like this. Being able to redirect your alignment using a box is just such a unique way for a shortcut to work, and I love it. It isn't easy to do either, which makes it extremely rewarding to pull off in races whenever you're in the front. Also, there is a big time disparity between making the shortcut regularly and making it as fast as possible, since being able to do it without ever releasing A or pressing B saves a lot of time, which is mainly a factor when playing time trials. Another shortcut that is really rewarding to pull off in online races takes the number 2 spot on my list as we make a return to Whistle Stop Summit, but this time it is the ending shroomless shortcut onto the top rail. I mean, the fact that this is even possible is just ridiculous, but what makes it so good is that being able to pull it off almost guarantees you will do well on the track. The breakaway you can get from other players on this track if you pull off this shortcut on lap 1 can be huge, and I really appreciate the difficulty of a shortcut giving you a worthy reward. To be honest, I'm not even good at this shortcut, but that helps me notice how much of an advantage people who are good at it get over me, making me want to improve my skills. Also, similarly to the gap jump earlier in the video, you can use a feather to make it up to the rail really easily, so that's an extra bonus. The first few times I played Rainbow Road in this game were amazing. With such an extravagant visual, it was the craziest first playthrough of any track in any game I've played. However, the novelty of the track died pretty quickly to me, just because of how long the track is and there wasn't really anything to look forward to at the end of the race to make it worth the wait. Well, as you can probably tell, that is no longer the case because the number 1 spot on the list is the ending shortcut on Rainbow Road. This shortcut single-handedly saves this track. It is so much fun to do after racing for 4 minutes, and it makes this track actually good to be in the front on. And of course, it just looks crazy. I mean, look at it. You jump off the left wall of the road towards a random pole on the left, then trick off that to get all the way to the other side of the huge gap. It isn't even too hard to do either. It takes a bit of practice, but you can learn it very quickly. You even have 2 ways to approach it, since you can attach to the wall directly from the glider, or you can use a charge jump from the road instead. Overall, I think this shortcut is simply the perfect way for a Rainbow Road race to end, making it my favourite shortcut in Mario Kart World. Thanks for watching.